Amaka sat quietly at the long table, the golden chandelier shining above as dishes of jollof rice, pepper soup, and roasted goat filled the room. The air was thick with laughter, but none of it was warm. Her mother-in-law's sharp eyes cut through her, and her sister-in-law smirked with pride, whispering insults loud enough for everyone to hear. They spoke about her village background, the simple clothes she wore, and how she would never rise to their level. Each word was designed to crush her, but she sat with her head held high, hands folded neatly, refusing to give them the fight they wanted. Her husband, the one who should have defended her, shocked her most. Instead of protecting her, he joined their mockery, laughing at the remarks, nodding in agreement, and making his own cutting jokes. The betrayal burned deep, but she stayed calm, her face unreadable. No anger, no tears, just silence that unsettled those who wanted to see her break. As the chatter grew louder, she slowly reached into her bag and placed a sealed envelope in the center of the polished table. No words, no explanation. The sound of paper sliding across the wood silenced the room more than any outburst could have. Curiosity replaced cruelty as her husband tore it open. His laughter froze as he read the first lines. His hands shook while his mother leaned over, her eyes widening in disbelief. The documents revealed the truth. Amaka was the legal owner of the very estate they sat in, the businesses that funded their luxury, and the inheritance they flaunted with pride. Every title, every signature carried her name. Gasps echoed around the table. The power they used to humiliate her slipped instantly from their grasp. Her husband's face drained of color, sweat rolling down his forehead. The same woman he mocked now held his future in her hands. He stammered, his pride collapsing along with his voice. Amaka finally spoke, her tone soft but firm. She explained she stayed silent not because she was weak, but because she believed in patience. Tonight that patience showed its strength. Rising gracefully, she left the table without looking back. Her steps were steady, her head high, while they remained frozen in shame. The dinner that began with mockery ended with silence, and the family that tried to break her now sat powerless in the home that truly belonged to her. Her husband's relatives wasted no time before turning the evening into an attack. They sat across the table, their voices sharp and filled with judgment. His mother looked her up and down and shook her head, asking loudly why her son had chosen someone with such a poor background. The sister leaned closer with a mocking laugh, commenting on her dress, saying it looked too cheap for such a wealthy family gathering. Another relative whispered, but loud enough for everyone to hear, that she didn't belong in a home like this because she had no class, no refinement, and no status to match their name. The remarks grew bolder as plates of food were passed around. They questioned how she would ever raise children with proper values when she came from a village family with nothing to their name. They laughed at her accent, made jokes about her simple hairstyle, and compared her to other women they felt would have been more suitable for their son. Every word was chosen to sting. Every laugh meant to break her confidence. Even the cousins joined in, shaking their heads in fake pity, pretending they could not understand why she was allowed at the table at all. The room filled with cruel giggles, and she could feel every pair of eyes on her, waiting for her to snap. Yet she did not respond. She sat quietly, her face calm, refusing to give them the reaction they wanted. They mistook her silence for weakness, so their insults became harsher. They said she would never understand the lifestyle they lived, that she would always look out of place in designer halls and golden chandeliers. They pointed at her plain shoes, mocking her for not shining like the others in glittering diamonds. Each remark was like a knife, but she did not flinch. Her husband's family wanted to remind her she was beneath them, that she was only tolerated and never truly welcomed. They wanted her to believe she had no worth, no voice, no power. They were blind to the truth sitting right before them, blind to the strength in her silence. While they enjoyed their own cruelty, she quietly carried something none of them could imagine, something that would soon change everything. The louder their insults grew, the calmer her heart became, because she knew their words would mean nothing once the truth came to light. She sat at the table with her hands resting gently on her lap, her face calm even as cruel words circled around her. Every remark was meant to cut deep, but she chose not to answer. Instead of defending herself, she stayed quiet, her silence louder than any argument. She lifted her glass slowly, took a sip, and placed it back down without trembling. Inside, her heart was steady, her mind strong. She had learned long ago that sometimes power is not in shouting back, but in holding still when everyone expects you to break. Her husband's family waited for a reaction. They leaned closer, whispering louder, laughing sharper, testing her limits. They wanted her to lose control, to cry, to fight, to prove that she was weak. But her calm eyes never shifted. She looked at them with the same steady gaze, showing no anger, no sadness, no fear. The more they mocked her, the more uneasy they became, because the woman they thought they could crush was not bending. Even when her husband joined in, siding with his mother and sister, her lips did not move. She sat with quiet strength, letting them expose who they truly were. She knew that answering back would only give them more fuel, more excuses to humiliate her. So she let the storm rage around her while she remained unshaken. Her silence carried a message they could not understand. True dignity does not need to be loud. The clinking of cutlery and bursts of laughter filled the grand dining room. But her stillness created a different kind of tension. It unsettled them that she refused to defend herself, that she would not play the role of the victim they wanted. Every second she stayed composed, their power slipped, though they did not see it yet. Her patience was not weakness, it was preparation. She was waiting for the right moment, holding on to the truth she carried with her. While they mocked her clothes, her accent, and her worth, she quietly held the knowledge that everything they valued would soon fall into her hands. Her silence was not emptiness. It was strength, it was control, it was the calm before the reveal that would change everything. The turning point came when her own husband leaned back in his chair, laughing along with the others. At first, she thought he would finally stop them, maybe defend her against the cruel remarks. But instead, he joined their voices, adding jokes about her background, and even pointing at her dress with a smirk. His mother's eyes lit up with satisfaction, proud that her son was standing on her side, not his wife's. His sister clapped her hands, delighted that he was openly mocking the woman he had promised to protect. Her heart tightened, but she did not flinch. The betrayal cut deeper than any insult from his family. Yet she remained composed. She had always believed marriage meant loyalty, but here he was, choosing their approval over her dignity. His laughter was sharp, his words colder than anyone else's, because they came from the man who had once held her hand and vowed to love her. Instead of being her shield, he became part of the attack, proving to everyone that he valued their opinions more than her worth. The family grew bolder, sensing victory. They encouraged him to continue, laughing louder as he threw in remarks about her being lucky to even sit at that table. They compared her to women he had dated before. Women they claimed had more beauty, more status, more value. His voice carried across the room, and every word felt like a blade. Yet even as the person she trusted most joined in tearing her down, she stayed quiet. Her silence unsettled them in ways they could not admit. They expected tears, shouting, or perhaps her storming out, but none of that happened. She simply sat straighter, her calm presence at odds with the cruelty around her. Inside, she was already making a decision. This was no longer about fitting in, no longer about being accepted. This was about showing them all that their words meant nothing compared to the truth she carried. As her husband mocked her with pride, thinking he had pleased his family, he did not realize he was digging his own downfall. Every cruel remark brought the moment closer when the balance would shift. She let him laugh, let them all cheer him on, because soon the same voice that mocked her would tremble in shock when the truth landed on the table. She reached into her bag slowly, her face calm while the laughter still echoed around her. Without saying a word, she pulled out a sealed envelope and placed it gently on the polished table. The sound was soft, but it cut through the noise like thunder. Forks paused midair, voices trailed off, and eyes turned toward the white paper resting in front of them. Nobody understood why she had brought it, but curiosity spread like fire. The mocking smiles began to fade as whispers filled the air. Her husband frowned, confused, asking what it was, but she did not answer. She only pushed it closer to him, her fingers steady, her silence deliberate. He hesitated, then tore the envelope open in front of everyone, eager to prove it meaningless. But the moment his eyes landed on the first page, his face changed. The laughter stuck in his throat, his jaw tightening as he scanned the words again and again, unable to believe them. His mother leaned forward, demanding to know what it said. When he passed it to her, her proud smile collapsed into shock. The sister snatched it next, reading with wide eyes, her hands trembling. The papers revealed legal documents, proof that the estate they were so proud of, the businesses they bragged about, and the wealth they flaunted all belonged to the very woman they had just humiliated. Every signature carried her name, every page confirmed her authority. The room that had been filled with cruel remarks now drowned in silence. She remained still, her expression unchanged, watching them crumble one by one as the truth unfolded. The relatives who mocked her shoes now realized she paid for the roof over their heads. The mother who boasted about her power now held papers that proved she had none. Even the husband who betrayed her sat frozen, clutching the documents as sweat rolled down his face. The envelope that looked so small had turned their world upside down. It was no longer just paper. It was proof of strength, proof of ownership, proof that she had carried the real power all along. By placing it on the table without a word, she had spoken louder than any defense could have. The family that thought they controlled her now sat helpless, trapped in the truth she revealed with a single quiet gesture. The moment the words on the papers became clear, the entire table froze. The documents proved without any doubt that she was the rightful owner of the grand estate they sat in, the successful business that funded their lifestyle, and the inheritance they loved to boast about in public. Her name was printed in bold letters, her signature stamped on every page. The power they believed belonged to them was, in truth, all hers. Her husband's hands shook as he flipped through each page, hoping there was a mistake. His mother's lips parted in disbelief, her proud face crumbling as she realized she no longer held control. The sister who had mocked her clothes earlier could only stare at the papers, her confidence draining away. Every laugh, every cruel remark they had thrown at her moments ago turned bitter in their mouths. They had insulted the very woman who held everything they claimed as theirs. The silence was heavy, broken only by the sound of the documents being passed around. Relatives who once sneered at her now avoided her eyes. They whispered in confusion, asking each other if it was real, if such authority could truly belong to the one they had mocked. But there was no denying the seals, the stamps, the signatures. Every detail screamed the same truth. She owned it all. She did not need to raise her voice. She did not need to explain herself. The truth spoke louder than anything she could say. Their pride collapsed in front of her, their power stripped away in an instant. The chandelier above sparkled just as brightly, but the room felt darker now, filled with shame instead of laughter. Her husband dropped the papers back onto the table, his face pale, his mouth dry. The same man who joined in the mockery now sat powerless, realizing his future depended on the woman he had just betrayed. His mother gripped the edge of the table, her hands trembling as she searched for words but found none. The reveal shattered the balance of the family. What was once theirs to brag about now rested completely under her control. She had not shouted. She had not fought. She had only revealed the truth. And in that single moment, she turned their pride into silence, their mockery into regret, their power into nothing. The room fell silent the moment the truth sank in. Gasps echoed from every corner of the long dining table, and the laughter that once filled the air disappeared as quickly as it had come. Forks dropped onto plates, glasses were set down with shaking hands, and eyes widened in disbelief. The same relatives who had been so loud only minutes before now struggled to even breathe. The power they thought belonged to them had slipped away in an instant, and they could feel the shift pressing down on them like a heavy weight. Her mother-in-law, who had been the loudest voice of mockery, covered her mouth with her hand, unable to hide her shock. The sister who had smirked proudly only moments ago now sat frozen, her confidence shattered. Cousins who had joined in the laughter lowered their eyes, pretending to study their plates, afraid to face the woman they had mocked. Every pair of eyes in the room avoided hers, yet all of them were drawn to her presence, realizing she was no longer the outsider, but the one in complete control. Her husband sat at the head of the table, papers still trembling in his hands. He opened his mouth as if to speak, but no words came out. His pride was broken, his betrayal exposed, and he now looked like a man cornered by his own mistakes. The family who once cheered his mockery now gave him no support because they too understood the truth. The woman they had tried to humiliate was the one who held the keys to their wealth, their home, and their name. The atmosphere was heavy, filled with shame and disbelief. Nobody dared to whisper another insult. Nobody dared to laugh again. Instead, they sat in silence, their breaths short, their faces pale, their pride gone. The chandelier still glowed above them. The dishes of food still sat untouched, But the dinner had changed completely. It was no longer their table, it was hers. She sat calmly, her posture straight, her face serene. She did not need to remind them what the papers said. Their expressions told the story well enough. The power had shifted, and they all felt it. The woman they thought they could destroy had turned the entire room upside down with one simple act, and now the silence spoke louder than any insult they had ever thrown at her. Realizing he had mocked the very woman who now controlled everything, her husband began to panic. His chest rose and fell quickly, sweat forming on his forehead as he clutched the papers with trembling fingers. Only moments ago, he had laughed the loudest, proud to stand with his mother and sister against her. Now every cruel word he had thrown at her echoed back like thunder, each one heavier than the last. His face turned pale, and the confidence that once filled his voice was gone, replaced by fear. He tried to speak, stammering her name, but his throat felt dry. His hands shook so badly that the papers slipped and scattered across the table. His mother reached for him, but even she could not calm him. The realization hit him harder than any blow. His entire future, his comfort, his home, his wealth, all rested in the hands of the woman he had humiliated. He saw the looks of shame on his relatives' faces, but none of them rushed to defend him. For the first time, he was truly alone. His eyes darted to her, searching for mercy, but she sat calmly, her face steady, her silence louder than any words. The weight of what he had done crushed him. He had betrayed not just his vows, but his own dignity, and now he was left powerless. His panic grew as he imagined life without her, without the estate, without the fortune. The same family who once cheered his mockery would not save him now. They too were at her mercy. He buried his face in his hands, gasping for breath, his voice breaking as he begged her to understand. The man who had ridiculed her in front of everyone was now trembling before her strength. Every second that passed made the collapse more visible. His shoulders slumped, his pride shattered, his confidence gone. The family who once admired him now looked at him with pity. The wife they had called unworthy now appeared untouchable. His downfall was not loud, but it was complete. In a single evening, the man who thought he held control had lost it all, and the woman he mocked had become the one who decided what his tomorrow would look like. His panic filled the room, but her calmness only made his collapse more painful to watch. She finally spoke, her voice steady and calm, carrying across the silent room. She explained that her silence was never weakness but a choice. She told them she had listened to every insult, every laugh, every cruel word, and she chose not to answer because she wanted them to reveal who they truly were. Her patience had been her shield, and now it became her strength. She looked around the table, her eyes meeting theirs one by one, reminding them that power is not about shouting the loudest but about knowing when to speak. She said she had endured their judgment because she believed time always reveals the truth. Tonight was that moment. The papers were not just documents. They were proof of what she had built, what she had inherited, and what she controlled. She reminded them that while they mocked her background, she had quietly held the keys to everything they valued. They had measured her worth by clothes, by status, by family name, but true value was not found in gossip or pride. It was found in actions, in patience, in quiet strength. Her words cut deeper than their insults ever had. She told her husband that she had expected loyalty, respect, and protection, but instead he had joined the laughter. Yet even his betrayal could not take away the position she now held. She explained that she had no need to raise her voice or prove herself with anger because the truth was already written in ink, sealed with signatures, and backed by law. The family sat motionless, their heads lowered as her calm voice filled the room. She reminded them that everything they enjoyed, the roof over their heads, the food on their plates, the luxury they bragged about, was now under her control. She told them she would no longer sit quietly in their shadow because she had stepped fully into her own light. Her voice was not bitter, not harsh, only firm and clear. The calmness in her words made them more powerful than any scream. By the time she finished, the family who once laughed at her sat in shame, unable to answer. She had turned silence into strength, patience into victory, and humiliation into power, and she did it with nothing more than calm words spoken at the right moment. She pushed her chair back slowly, the sound echoing in the silent dining room. Without rushing, she stood tall, her shoulders straight, her head high. Every eye followed her, but none dared to speak. The same family that had mocked her minutes earlier now sat frozen in shame, unable to meet her gaze. She picked up her bag, adjusted her dress, and walked with grace toward the door. Her steps were steady, each one a reminder that dignity is more powerful than pride. Her husband reached out, calling her name softly, but his voice cracked with fear. She did not turn back. The mother who once laughed so loudly now sat speechless, her hands trembling. The sister who boasted with confidence stared at her plate, unable to lift her head. Cousins who had joined in the mockery looked at each other nervously, realizing the woman they had insulted had left them powerless. The air was heavy with regret, but she carried none of it with her. Every step away from the table was a step into freedom, into strength, into a future where their words no longer had power over her. She had come into the dinner as the target of their cruelty, but she was leaving as the one who controlled their world. Her silence, her patience, and her truth had changed everything. When she reached the doorway, she paused for a moment, not to look back but to take in the weight of what she had just done. Then she continued forward, leaving behind a family drowning in their own shame. The chandelier still glowed above the untouched plates of food, but the night had ended for them the moment she revealed the truth. She stepped outside into the night air, her spirit lighter than it had ever been. The stars above seemed brighter, the silence outside softer than the silence she left behind. This was not an ending but a beginning. She had walked away from their cruelty, their laughter, their betrayal, and stepped into a new chapter built on her strength and dignity. The family remained at the table, trapped in the echo of their own mistakes, while she moved forward with grace, leaving their shame behind her forever. Hey, my loves two hearts, thank you for staying till the end. Glowing star, don't forget to like, thumbs up, drop a comment, speech balloon, and subscribe bell for more amazing stories. See you in the next one. Waving hand.